Welcome to the Kentucky Line. I'm Matt.
And I'm Clifton. So, come to you after a week that's been relatively quiet for Kentucky, at least on the basketball side of things. Did get a commitment yesterday. Frank Kepnang or Kepnong, I guess it's pronounced. So, kind of what we hope is the backup center role. So, Matt, just kind of some thoughts through the week with that pickup and kind of where Kentucky's roster stands as of today, in your opinion.
Well, I, I think that was the pickup yesterday was big as long as he is going to be a backup.
Yeah.
I think that's got to be our hope. Um, I think that as far as roster goes, we've I think we need a shooter, one more shooter,
Mm-hmm.
get out, and maybe a guard. I feel like we've got enough guards though,
Yeah.
especially with the kid from Clark County that came back. I think he'll be serviceable as a backup,
I do too.
um, and so I think we're going to be okay there. But it'd be nice if we could go out and get a kind of a legitimate shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not really sure what our chances are of getting the kid from Ohio State, but I mean, no, not Iowa State. I'm sorry,
Obviously, yeah.
Iowa State. But obviously, if we can somehow manage to get him, if he's even going to be available, um, would be huge. But honestly, the more I think about our roster, I feel pretty good about it. I think that we have really beat uh, into the fact, kind of the dead horse when it comes to we got to have a star, we got to have a star, and I agree. It'd be nice to have a star. And right now, I don't know that we really have one. But you know, if Moreno is going to be one of the best centers in the nation, well, there's a start.
Yeah.
And if Diallo and Wilkins are going to be as good as I feel like they could be, I feel like our backcourt's going to be pretty good. It's just going to be I think it's a wild card for. I think Cam Williams is going to be really good. I think the wild card for this roster is Braden Hawthorne. How good is he?
Yeah.
But anyway,
In my mind, I think this team doesn't need a star if everyone meets expectations. But I think sometimes when you hear Coach Pope talk, it's sometimes it kind of seems like hyperbole to me in the fact that, last year we heard how good everything was and how great and grand and beautiful everything was. So sometimes my natural instinct, and I've not always been this way, is when he says Marino is going to be, one of the best centers or the best center in college basketball. Part of me is like, well, I think he's going to be improved, but is he going to be that level? And I hope so. If he is, that's a star because, the college game is shifting more to through the post again. There's still a reliance on 3-point shooting, but there's probably a greater emphasis now on rebounding than there's been in a long time. And that's how you saw teams, like Florida was a great example of that last year, and they were the number one overall seed. I just wonder if, what Kentucky wants to be if this roster as it stands today is good enough. And I hope they are, but I think that requires every single piece, minimum meeting expectations. Now, you did mention Mamanovich from Iowa State. After the lottery, the first round of mock drafts are out there at the combine starting today and kind of getting into some of the drills and measurements tomorrow. So far, he's still projected, lower down than even Marino. So if he's coming back to school, I think Kentucky is one of the schools, probably the handful of schools that is going to make a strong offer. There's some schools out there like a LSU that has plenty of money left, still doesn't have a whole lot of players, and that they've shown they're probably willing to overspend for some guys. But I think he's someone when you consider Pope's system, when you consider the need for a shooter, he's someone that I don't think Kentucky can afford to really not give it their best shot. And I've said on this podcast, and I've told you, Matt, that I think, to me, he's a better fit for Pope than even Tyron Stokes would have been. And he's just, to me, when you look at Kentucky, had those three guys all on campus within a week. In Rob Wright, Tyron Stokes, and Donnie Freeman, and missed on all of them. That hurts because those were probably your 1, 2, and 3 options coming into the portal. Well, Mamanovich is right there, and if he's not, the number one on that list, he's right there, a 1B. So I think he's someone that whatever money you have left and can scrape together, I think you go with that. And if not, I still think you need one shooter, even if it's just someone coming off the bench.
Yeah, I think he would give us that extra, um, almost sure thing of a shooter that we were looking for. And the more I think about this team, I think we tend to bypass uh, Cam Williams a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and how good he was starting to play last year before he got hurt.
Right.
He played himself into a starting role, and if he improves and continues to get better, I think he can be, I think he can be really good for us next year. And I still think this Wilkins kid is going to be a stud. I really do. I think he's the type of kid that will really uh, be a player. And that guy from James Madison, I think I I think could surprise
Yeah.
everyone as well. Um, and so I feel like we have a lot of pieces, but if we were able to get that guy,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously that is a game changer.
Right.
And and listen, I think the guy that we from Senegal,
Mm-hmm.
that I think he's could be a lot better than we think. You know, so it's just kind of one of those deals where a lot of things are, until we see everyone play, it's going to be hard to kind of know. And I think Braden Hawthorne, like I said earlier, is going to be a wild card, because if he can play, what was he ranked last year? In that,
Anywhere from, I would say, 30 to 45, depending
yeah,
on what you were looking at. And that was a historically great class.
well, right, and that's what I'm saying. And in that class, he's in the top 40, or
Mm-hmm.
top, or around 30 to 40. You know, that just tells me that he's got to be pretty good. And having a year under his belt, getting stronger, and he's got a huge wingspan. I just feel like, he could come in and be a lot better than anybody expected. And so it's just one of those deals where we just don't know.
Yeah. So, you know, I think he has the potential. I just, to me, I don't know if I'm Pope and if I know I'm going into a season to, for my job, I don't know if I'm going to settle for a roster where I'm, banking on guys reaching their potential. I want a proven thing. And I think he would probably, sleep a lot better. And I think he's still recruiting. I think that's fairly obvious at this point. I don't think the roster's finished, or at least he doesn't want it to be finished yet. And I'm interested to see how it plays out, because I do think some pieces are there. But ultimately, right now, I think, when you hear Pope talk, and he's talking about that Wilkins and Diallo, how good of playmakers they are, and they're the top two, like efficiency wise passing guards in the portal. That's all well and good, but you have to have somebody to pass to that can knock down open shots. And that's where I think, you hope Cam Williams is that. You hope Trent Noah is that coming off the bench. But you know, hoping only gets you so far. So I'm hoping that there's still another piece out there, and obviously you want it to be as big a fish as you can get.
Yeah. Well, obviously, uh, we've got we've just got to be able to have guys on the court that can make shots, and I think, and I do, and I don't, I really do believe Cam Williams is going to be that guy
Yeah.
that can make shots. I think Trent Noah, you know, we know he can shoot the ball.
Yeah.
It's just a matter. Sometimes it's just a matter of making a few shots and getting some confidence, and and kind of riding that. So it's just a matter of, uh, make getting in the rhythm. But obviously, if we can get this guy, I don't even know how to say his last name,
I think it's
but
Mamanovic.
if we can get Mamanovic, we want him.
Yeah.
You know, and if we get that, if we get him, I mean, honestly, I don't think all we really need to do is, if maybe find another uh, solid backup somewhere,
Hmm.
but we'll be. I think we'll be pretty set, man. I mean,
Yeah, I do too. I think ideally him and maybe one more just guard for depth purposes, just maybe in case of an emergency. Um, I think that would be perfect if they're both surefire shooters. Um, then even better. Um, and so while we're talking about roster, I guess it's uh, Kepnang. He 7th year player. He was uh, you know ruled eligible. He got his waiver. So this is when they're starting a 5-for-5 rule this coming season. I think having that experience is going to be important. Any concern for you that he's kind of battled injuries for a couple seasons?
I mean, not. I mean, I guess it's always a concern, but not necessarily because I think last year, we Jalen Lowe and Cam Williams both got hurt, and neither of them had really injuries before. It's just I think it's just one of those deals where if he's healthy, then he's healthy, and if he happens to get hurt again, well, obviously that's no good. But
Yeah.
I'm not really that worried about it, especially since I think he's going to be in a backup role. But I can tell you what I do feel about him is if he is healthy and he's able to play all year, I think he's going to be a big asset to us, especially in the SEC defensively, rebounding, because he's a banger. He's a big dude, big strong dude, and I think he'll really help us.
Yeah, I do as well. Um, as you said, I think he's coming in to be a backup. So if he was, if for some reason Marino goes pro, and I don't anticipate that happening right now, but there's been a lot of things this offseason I anticipated happening that didn't happen. But if Marino went pro, and then all of a sudden, well, this guy's going to be our starter, and Reese Potter is our backup, and he has injury issues, then then I'm going to be concerned. We're
Then we're in
definitely gonna,
trouble. then
but
then we could be in trouble.
but if you're assuming if he comes in as a backup, one, he's a polar opposite to Marino, much more physical, and so I think that's good. He's a defensive stopper, which is something Marino's I think has potential to be, but he's probably not there yet. And he's someone I think that'll make Marino better. And he's also going to be playing, much more limited minutes than when he's been a starter at Washington the last several seasons. So I think for those reasons, I don't think the injury concerns bothers him much as long as he's, that backup and that eighth man off the bench, not necessarily someone you need to be playing 30 plus minutes a game as your starting five. But one last thing I want to talk about is for as basketball, and this will be a kind of a shorter episode tonight. Have you got a chance to watch any of Pope's videos put out? I think number 4 today. So what's just some thoughts on those that stood out to you over the last week?
Well, I didn't see the one today, but I did see the other ones, and I thought first of all I was glad to hear from him, and just I think that it has settled a lot of whether you liked or didn't really like what he had to say. I think it's kind of settled a lot of nerves,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. Um, but I, you know, the GM question that he answered was, I thought was, if that's the case,
Yeah.
they have a team of people doing this. I mean, whatever. Uh, my only thing is they still need to be, whoever it is needs to be closing on some of these people
Yeah.
um, that we weren't able to get. But uh, but yeah, I think that he's answering. Uh, I don't think he answered. Um, didn't just take a bunch of softball questions. He was able to uh, take some of these take some questions that were real questions, and I thought he gave pretty good answers to.
Yeah. I did as well. I think it was a great PR move, and I thought when he first done it, I was a little worried, and you know, one was that when we saw him through the season, he kind of emotionally was up and down, and I was like, you're going to get some tough questions, and you're going to have people really criticizing, and they were. The comments were nasty at times, but I will say the first thing I liked is that he didn't dodge a lot of it. He kind of hit things head on, whether you agree or disagree. Me personally, I probably wish the GM thing was organized a little differently, or at least um, I guess Keegan Brown was in place earlier and not after the portal kind of started or right on the cusp of starting. Uh, so you can nitpick with things, but at least he's communicating. At least he's out there, uh, kind of uh, telling his side of things, and he's not letting everyone else give the narrative for him. He's kind of telling what he believes and why he thinks this, and I think that's a good thing. But also, I think it's really been the best side of Pope. He's come across as likable, every single one of them. I thought there's been a lot of news that's come out of every one of them, and even today's I thought was really good. He kind of There was a rebuttal question to the GM situation. He went into that a little bit. There were some things about accountability. If you have all these people, who's ultimately deciding on who you're going after, and he talked about him, and he kind of addressed that there's some people we've brought on campus for visits that he's especially he kind of hinted that it was during the transfer portal time, so it wasn't high school players, but he said we cut the visit short and kind of let them leave without really pursuing it. One of them, he said he decided to end the visit within 3 hours of the player arriving. So I think it's good to just hear his side of things, and
Right.
and you're able to write your own story. And if this season is going to be as pressure filled as I anticipate it being, I think you want to go out and not have any excuses. Say this is the way I wanted to go out. This is the team I wanted to build, and kind of, for lack of better words, put all your chips on the table, and just see how it unfolds. But I think it's done good, and he's come across very likable. It's the Pope that kind of the fans fell in love with. That Sunday afternoon in Lexington when he was announced. I think it's been that side of him that we've saw over the last week, and I've enjoyed watching him.
Yeah, and on to your point of uh, just Pope in general uh, being more likable, and uh, but one thing that you said that him cutting some of the visits short, I think that that's a good, that lets us know that there's two sides to this. I think a lot of times we hear, well, this person's coming in for a visit. Of course, we don't know who he's talking about, but somebody comes in for a visit, and, all we know is, well, we didn't get him. Well, maybe we didn't want him.
Want him, yeah,
And so sometimes I think that kind of gives another side of the uh, coin and a different perspective, that sometimes when we're not seeing the whole picture, a lot of times um, we can jump to our own conclusions. And the fact of the matter is we're not going to be privy to all of the negotiations. I mean, obviously, you know, we don't know what's being said, and I think sometimes us as fans think that we should know exactly what's being said at all times, and that's just not how it's
yeah,
going to be. But um, yeah, I think that he has definitely been a lot more open. And when he answered the question of somebody said, I think it was in the first one, bringing 14 of the top 20 recruits. He tackled that and was like, "Yeah, I want to have 20, and but hopefully we can get some." I mean,
Right.
he's I think acknowledging that they did have that many come, and acknowledging that we didn't get any. And one thing that he acknowledged too was when somebody asked, "Are people using UK to leverage offers?" and he said,
Hmm.
"Absolutely, they are." And um, hopefully we can figure out a way to uh, not uh, allow that to happen as much.
And I think having a GM in place, whether it's Brown or someone else, whatever, I think him being in place earlier through the season will help some of that because you've already kind of built those relationships. I think that's my biggest criticism of Pope really for the last year is it seems like he's almost become like Barnhart in the fact that he's very reactionary. He wasn't proactive in kind of attacking the portal. I didn't feel like. I think he's like, all right, who's getting in the portal? Who wants to come visit? And here's the reality: 95% of the guys when they enter, they know where they're going.
Yeah.
You can call it tampering, you can call it whatever, but that's just the way it works. And we're gonna have to kind of get on the dirty side of things if we're going to compete. And ultimately, I think there's still a couple fish out there that can really make a difference, and hopefully that's what we're able to do to close this class. But speaking of classes and recruiting, over the next month or so, as Pope finalizes the roster, I'm sure we'll jump more and be talking some about football. So before we leave, I do think we need to at least mention that Will Stein has just been killing it. He's brought in several defensive players and brought in a big time wide receiver yesterday. We spoke last time about the number 2 quarterback in the country is committed, and I just think right now the football team's rolling, and I'm even if we don't see the wins necessarily this season, I'm excited about the future of the program.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it seems like every time I turn around, we're signing another 4-star
Yep.
player at some position. And I mean, that's just not been the norm here. So we are going to have a big time recruiting class. Um, and I think next year, uh, we're going to be significantly better than what we've been. Now, I'm not sure how many wins we're going to have because our schedule is insane, but I think we're going to be significantly better. And then, you know, he gets his recruiting class, and so we're going to see uh, kind of his second year. I think the expectations will be a little bit different as far as wins. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? This year, I think it's just a matter of we want to see improvement uh, on, and I think we will see that big time. I
I do
think we're
too. I
going to.
think I think for this year, I think if you're competitive, you win 4 or 5 ball games, and I think part of it, honestly, I think Kentucky wants to play exciting football. And I mean, I remember, and I love Stoops, and I had season tickets for several years, and I even remember during the 10-win seasons, there would be people complaining about the offense and just how much we ran the ball, and I didn't care. But I think part of that, Kentucky really fell in love with Hal Mummy, 30 years ago,
Oh
and
yeah,
they have a desire to run the air raid and sling it around. And Stein's offense isn't the air raid, but it's much more exciting, much more fast paced. So I think, it's just going to be a breath of fresh air for a lot of fans. And right now, the high school class, is 16th in the country, and just 4 stars scattered up and down. And part of me worried that was my biggest thing with Stoops leaving was, nobody's really been able to recruit like Stoops did, Stoops and Marrow. And so is anybody going to be able to, do that once they left? But Stein showed, yeah, we can, and he's put together a good staff that's able to recruit, and so I'm looking forward to it. But Matt, before we hop off of here, anything else that you have this evening?
Oh, I don't think so, man. I think the main thing right now is try to round out this roster for the basketball team, and it'd be awesome if we can snag a big fish and then another good uh, piece to complement everyone that we need, and then just kind of go from there. But yeah, I thought it'll be interesting to see over the next uh, couple weeks how we round this out.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, and like I said, next time, by the time we're back next week, probably a week from now, unless some major news drops, I would anticipate we'll hear something about kind of some decisions. Hopefully, Marino's back, and then we learn something about Mamanovich, and the roster hopefully is starting to take shape by then. But within 2 weeks from now, I think May 27th is the deadline, so it still may be a couple weeks out. But the combine's this week, so we should really start seeing some of those final decisions here soon. But regardless, we'll be here to talk about it, and we'll talk to everybody next time. Go Cats.
All right, go Cats.